Welcome to KIMEcast, where we break through and cut the BS in sports medicine, rehabilitation, and sports performance, and talk about how things really work. Hey guys, welcome to KIMEcast. Tony Mikla with Aaron Crouch, and we're excited for our special guest tonight. So Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn's coming in. It's great to have you. We're going to talk a little bit about some mental side of the process, especially coming off from having potentially a tragedy or having something difficult happen, and this recovery process, especially from a mental aspect. Excited to hear from her. She functions as a nurse practitioner clinically, but then also is in the nursing department at Sacramento State University as a professor as well, and has recently published a new book, which is fantastic. Her second book published this summer. So what's the title of the book, Joyce?
So the book is on Amazon right now for pre-sale, but it'll be released in audio and hard copy April 13th, and it's called Anatomy of a Survivor: Building Resilience, Grit, and Growth After Trauma.
Love it.
So
we're excited to hear a little more about it, and obviously us as in the physical therapy community and the rehab community and the medical community, I think we feel this is one of the most overlooked areas of the process in engaging with clients. Is this, we see people as, well, not we, but the general population can see a patient as a number or see a patient as a diagnosis, but maybe missing some of the other more deeper aspects of what makes them who they are, what really brings them to life, what drives their life, their behavior, their passion to be human at the end of the day and improve their life, and that's what we're all about. We value this tremendously. I'm so excited to hear some things and hear your story. I think you've got a great one. So I'm gonna let Aaron run with it here.
Yeah, you have a tremendous amount of research in the post-traumatic triumph realm, and I think that comes from it comes from a personal story, and so I think you sharing your personal story of what happened to you and your process, I think is a good starting point that we can kind of elaborate on this topic.
Well, it's a good time to talk to, because actually this July was my 30th year of survival. So I did a really kind of cool thing, 30 years I was going to do 30 miles to recognize 30 years of gratitude, whatever, and so we couldn't do that. So we did a little virtual thing. It was kind of fun.
Awesome.
But yes, so 30 years ago in July, I died. And I had 22 minutes of CPR to bring me back to life. And so some of your listeners probably, have children on a swim team. My husband and I have 3 children. 2 of them at that time are on a swim team. And it was at a championship meet, and I remember nothing of this. So I kind of remember going out to dinner with some friends on a Friday night, and then this happened on a Sunday, and then I was in the hospital for a couple weeks. Just don't remember any of that. But I'm a very competitive person. I do marathoning, triathloning. I do a lot of physical activity, which I love. And so they were having a break in the swim meet, and before they did the finals, and they announced they were going to have an adult relay. So I grabbed my husband, a couple of friends, said, come on, we're going to swim this, we're going to win this, and I'm going to swim the last leg because I'm the fastest. I've been training a lot. So I did, I guess. So I swam the last leg of the relay, which finished at the side of the pool, which is 13 feet deep. And the timer, I heard later the timer said, do you need help out? And I said, no, and I just sunk to the bottom of the pool. And people were saying to my husband, hey, your wife's not coming up. And he said, oh, no, she swims all the time. You know how sometimes you go to the bottom of the pool and you just kind of come up? Yeah. And he goes, no, she's not coming up. So he dove to the bottom of the pool and got me to the side. And our children at that time our son wasn't quite 2, our daughters were 7 and 8. And he got me to the side of the pool, and luckily there were a lot of children there, so there were a lot of parents there, and a couple of them were ER docs and a cardiac nurse specialist and everything. And they started CPR at poolside for over 20 minutes, and then it was at Jesuit High School at their pool there, so they landed a helicopter in the football field at Jesuit and life flighted me to UC Davis, and that's when my life drastically changed. So I was in ICU, and I was on a respirator, and it's funny, I don't remember. Then I got off the respirator another week or so in UC Davis, and then they transferred me to Sutter hospital. And that's the first time, I just remember literally my first memory is sitting up in the hospital bed at Sutter. And I looked at the end of the bed and I saw my brother and sister-in-law. And I said, where am I? They go, well, you're in the hospital. Well, why am I here? Well, because, you died and you got resuscitated and you came back. And I'm like, no, and the funny thing too is, obviously I'd asked that question a bazillion times before and everybody answered it, and I did, everybody, but I had like so much brain injury from the extended CPR that I didn't get it. And by that time, all the IVs were gone, everything was gone. And when I was first in nursing, when I was a nurse, I worked in ICU. We resuscitate people all the time.
Sure.
And I remember them telling me that. And I remember opening up my hospital gown, looking at my chest, and I saw no marks from, the paddles. And I looked at my arms, and I go, no, that couldn't. They go, no, that happened. And I said, oh. And they go, can we get you something? I said, oh, I'm so hungry. My favorite meal is a cheeseburger, French fries, and a vanilla shake.
Nice.
So I said,
hard to go wrong there.
Can you get me, one of those things? It's like this, and it's got yellow stuff on it, and it's layered, and it's got these long things like this. You put salt on, and it comes with this white cold stuff in a cup, and you can drive through places and get it. And they were kind of figuring it all out, but that's when I realized that I started to realize I was really behind the 8 ball on stuff, that I was really pretty much a mess. So physically, because I was in such good shape, physically I actually did come back pretty quickly. I was able to do that. But cognitively and emotionally, that was my biggest challenge probably. I think there are several other challenges, but I kind of had a unique view because I already was a nurse practitioner at the time. And so I knew kind of the patient, medical nursing side of it, and then having it go through me. And I just remember, I was talking to Erin about this earlier, talking to you about, I was 35 years old, I had 3 children, I was very, very active. I worked out every single day. There's swimming, biking, running, doing something, and I had a whole group of friends, and that was my social life, and it was fun, and I loved it. And when I started asking about when I would do that again, I was constantly being told by physicians, oh, you're never going to do that again, you're never going to. And I think I can just remember sitting in my bed, and yet one other doctor told me I would never do that, and I just sobbed. I just remember just crying. And even my husband say, why are you so upset? You're alive. But it sounds crazy, but people don't realize that's like saying we took your arm off. Right. I mean, that is such an important part of my existence. And to have that gone and like no hope. And I saw the cardiologist who was taking care of me a little bit later in the hallway. And I remember totally walking up to that guy saying, you don't know who you're talking to. I've been through a lot of stuff before. No. I'm going to get through this. And here's the thing. Don't ever take hope away from somebody. Don't ever do that. I said, your job as a clinician is to ask me what I want to do and to get me there. Your job is to tell me what I can do. Stop the negative stuff, and I'm coming back. And then I turned around to go to my room, and I couldn't find my room. And I remember him saying,
great speech,
it was such a great speech. He goes, and then I came like, yeah, that's great. She's yelling at me, and she can't even find her room. However, I will say, to his benefit, 2 years later or so, I happened to run into him, just serendipitously. And I said, hey, do you remember me? Oh, yeah, I remember you. I said, oh. He goes, how you doing? And I said, well, actually, I'm doing pretty good. I have a cardiologist who's a runner. He sent me to cardiac rehab, which was a lifesaver. I started running in a way that, I wear a heart rate monitor. I don't run as fast. I just made a lot of adaptions and adjustments. And I said, and my kids are great, I'm doing well. And he said to me, he goes, well, congratulations, you are actually the bravest woman I've ever met. And so, it hit him at the time too. But I think that to me is the toughest thing, is just taking hope away. And really, I'll just say, as a clinician, and I think you as physical therapists, that's your job to say, where do you want to go with this?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
We sit in a unique seat across from clients, and they trust every word what we say, for the most part. And I think in any other situation, you might have people that don't have the clinical background that you had that would hear those suggestions and say, yeah, I guess I'm not ever going to run again, I'm not ever going to swim again, and just kind of take it for what it is, versus being resilient enough in your own personality, in your own mind, to say, that's not good enough, I'm going to go find someone else that can help me achieve the goals that I want to get to. What did that look like from the moment where you had that standoff with the cardiologist that maybe didn't quite give you the information you wanted, to then finding the path that you needed for someone to help you?
Well, I always talk about the importance of family and friends and advocacy, because I was messed up, so I couldn't do this on my own. So luckily, again, my husband, who had nothing to do with medicine, or he's in the world of finance, he just amped it up and basically helped me out and said, okay, well, can we find somebody who maybe she can talk to about this and do that? And so having somebody also advocate for you and say, yeah, I get how you want to do that. And then again, more than anything, was just like this hope that, you kind of start to do things. And even though I knew it was going to be a long haul, going to cardiac rehab, this cardiologist, Dan Van Hammersveld, to this day, I just talked to him, he's 70 years old. We talked about running the other day, he still runs every day. And he said, okay, here's the thing, you don't really know what is going to look like in the future, but I don't think you need to worry about that. What we want to do is today. And that's when I talk to people about stages that they go through, or the system. I wasn't worried about when I'm going to run my marathon again. No, it was just like, okay, today, let's get you into cardiac rehab, let's hook you up, let's get you walking, and then you start doing stuff. And then you start going, and then you start building some confidence, and you start getting some, some stuff, you start getting some, like I said, some work behind you, and then you can start moving. And here's the other thing too. When somebody says no, I don't know how other people are, but that makes me mad. And I go, I don't want to do that. But if somebody says, let's start here, and gets me and listens to me, or listened to me and got me going, after several months, I figured out, listen, I'm alive, I'm good. If I don't get back to a 7-minute mile, it's not the end of the earth. But at least I can participate. And that's what I really, and I figured it out as I went through. But to just shut that door, that's killer.
It is. It's really, it's sad to hear, and we hear that example, I think, too often clinically. Obviously, treating folks every day, we hear this comment of like, I went somewhere else, or I went to the doctor and they told me I'll never do this again. And it's just far too often that's just thrown out there as like, you shouldn't run again, it's bad for your knees. Like, really? There's, where are we getting that information from? That's a person's opinion, and maybe running defines that person's life, defines their lifestyle, defines their friendships, their social interactions. Who are we to say that they can't run anymore? I did not know your story before. I appreciate you sharing it. It's so valuable to hear, and interestingly enough, it's so fitting. I have a gentleman we're working with now, just 10 days ago, spent a night in the ICU. He was running. Has been healthy. He had a little fainting spell a couple months ago, and went out running for like 3 miles. Came back, went to pick a box up off the ground. When he came, Amazon delivered a box, as they do. So he picked the box up off the ground and fell over, and woke up right away. But they still took him to the doc to get checked out. They put him on the EKG, had all the tests, similar things. Never found nothing. Went out running. He kind of built up his running. Got up to 7 to 9 miles, and he was on a 7-mile trail run just about 10 days ago. went down, doesn't remember a thing, was out for 24 hours, taken to the hospital, and woke up, surprised to be there. And he's being told the same thing, never run again, you can't run anymore, it's unsafe. And he's like, what am I doing here if I can't run again,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You know, that's
yeah.
all he cares about is like, well, you know, I understand I shouldn't run today. So we had that conversation about, well, let's talk about where we're at, maybe what's safe, and a progression to get back. So I
Right.
think you alluded to that, spoke to that beautifully, that it's so
Right.
valuable and so important, like you said, to listen to where they're coming from, what they found, and then in our vision statement as an organization, it's to inspire hope.
Yeah.
So it's so fitting that
Yeah.
that you spoke to that and that
Yeah.
word. I think we believe in this passionately, and it's just critical to the process.
And I think a key element of what you said was the process that someone gave you to say, like, yeah, you can't look at your end goal right now and judge where you're at based on that, because that's a daunting vision, and it's possible if you can break it down into steps. And it's like, let's recognize where you're at right now. Let's all just be very realistic and like, what's your capability right now? And then what's that next benchmark we need to hit that gets you closer to that vision goal? And then through time, I think we all have our own thought process of accepting some level of limitation. But then again, we're guided along this process by hopefully someone that is well versed in the plan.
Right.
And I think that's what builds the ultimate success story, is, you know, getting a guide to help you kind of check the boxes to appropriately go through
Right,
the steps
right.
to go where you need to go.
And you know, and you get to a whole different level too of the notion of appreciation. Like, I just was so appreciative of when I got to do that again. It's like, it just takes it. Like, it's okay. After like months, it took a while, but after a while, I went, you know what? If I don't run a sub 4-hour marathon, I get to run. I get to do that. But you know, when you're bringing that up about one of the things so I do a lot of work in the rec therapy department too, because I love rec therapy. It's all about getting out there and moving. That's what PT's about, all getting out there and getting stuff done.
Right.
But I remember I was sharing that I had presented at a conference in Cambridge when the Olympics were in London. And that was like over 10 years ago. And I remember being at this conference. It was a rec therapy conference. And they had this whole discussion where they did not ever call athletes who were disabled athletes. They called them adaptive athletes. And I went, oh my gosh, the difference of one word.
Yeah, 100%.
The difference of one word.
Right.
So when you looked at what you people go out there, it's like, you can't do it, we may have to adapt it. It's like when somebody loses a leg, you can ski, but we're gonna have to adapt it. And when you think about it like that, we're just going to adapt it so it can work. That's a whole different mindset.
You
Absolutely.
MacGyver the body. That's it.
Yeah.
You're just in constant adjustment mode. You know,
Yeah.
let's modify it.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, no. But the other thing really quick, when they could never figure out, they couldn't get an idea of actually what happened to me. And I remember some of the treatments, nobody could figure it out, and I went through a variety of really painful lab work and testing and all this stuff. And they couldn't figure it out. So I remember, and this is why I really so push getting people an advocate, because I was in the business. I was a nurse practitioner at Sutter. I had an inside look, and I was struggling to get care. So can you even imagine what other people are? But finally, this doctor, Dan Van Hammersveld, got me to see a doctor, Roger Winkle, at Sequoia Medical Centers by Stanford, and he's like the guru of electrophysiology, problems of the heart. So I'm like, oh, he's going to have the answer of what happened, because they wanted to put an implantable defibrillator in me. They wanted to crack my chest open, put that, and I was like, no, I cannot go there. So I went to go see him. He looked at all my labs, all my tests, listened to me, examined me. I'll never forget this. He sat down, he goes, first of all, gotta tell you, you are the luckiest person I've ever met. I have never met anybody that had that much CPR and is A, alive, and B, sitting here talking to me. He said, secondly, your life has changed forever. Your life will never be the same. And there are decisions about how you want to live your life. And they are your decisions. And if you want to go out and run and this happens, that's maybe the way you want to do it, but you need to recognize they are your decisions. And fast forward that to when I was writing my book this summer, I was talking to a neurobiologist who does work on control. And he was talking about patients who even have the perception of some control. Even if somebody gives them that perception, maybe they don't have full control, but they have a perception of some control, they do better. So you think about that, putting people's decision. And he said, unless somebody was in your heart at that moment, we're never going to know what happened. So when I was driving home with my husband, I was so elated. He goes, why are you so happy? They didn't. I said, but it's just, I don't know, just somebody giving me permission.
Yeah, make your own decisions.
Yeah.
100%.
It's huge.
It's huge. And I think that, all that it segues into probably the message you wanted to write or convey to the general population and hopefully clinicians and anyone that's interested in your first book and certainly your second book. What was kind of give us a little bit of a relative summary or a overview of kind of what your message was in your first one, which was turning
Tragedy into triumph.
Yeah.
So, long story, but I got back my brain, obviously, went back to school, got a master's, and did my doctoral work studying people who had gone through extreme traumas. But my focus was on those who had done well. So I wanted to know not only why, but how did they come from the depths of that to, over time, master their fate. And so it was very interesting, and I had created a word before that called Metahabilitation, because I didn't like rehab. Thought that's way too small.
Yeah.
That's just going to baseline. People blow past baseline a lot. And so I created this word Metahab, and I love it when I was reading some of J.K. Rowling's work, he did.
Oh, yeah.
And his wife, in an interview said, words are not beautiful because of the way they look. They're beautiful because of what they mean. So meta, going above and beyond, habilitation, restoration, is a new kind of rehab system that I pulled together, and I interviewed a bunch of people who had done some amazing things and realized they did things not overnight, but over time. And there were definite stages that they would go through. So I identified 6 stages of Metahab. I identified different characteristics of the metahabilitated survivor and facilitating conditions. And so that's part of my first book.
Sure.
Is turning tragedy into triumph, going over that concept of Metahab, the research behind that, the stages behind that, and then how can you implement that clinically. And then
very cool.
The second book is really more expanded, because my first book came out probably a decade ago. So I've done some more research, I've had a sabbatical, I've looked at secondary and vicarious trauma survivors, I looked at communities' responses to trauma, and you really do see that there are opportunities in the midst of this tragedy. That again, people over time, they go through bad stuff. There is I say this to, like I work with veterans or, people, I go, I wish I could tell you, you will not be depressed or grieve, but I can't. But here's what I can tell you. That is an expected part of the healing process. You understand? That's part of the process. So I'm going to leave you there because you got to deal with that, but we're going to come back and get you. Because now you got to move.
Yeah.
And so that's, so the second book really does go into a lot of, not only the whole Metahab, but really expands much more on that. And also the notion of post-traumatic growth, which is not my term. It's Tedecchi and Calhoun, Lawrence Tedecchi and Richard Tedecchi and Lawrence Calhoun, who coined that term, post-traumatic growth. And so we kind of looked at what brings people ultimately and over time to be able to experience that very special place.
And do those people usually do it alone, or do they do it with the advocacy and guidance of, their own community of people or practitioners.
Oh yeah, no. They can tell you, and this person helped me, and this doctor helped me, and this physical therapist did this, and this person did this, and they definitely. First of all, it's no fun to do it alone.
No.
Second of all, you cannot do it alone because you need people there, because there's times when you're like, I can't do this, and people, you got this.
Yeah.
Let's move on. But I do want, in terms of having people help you out, I really do want to give a big round of applause for physical therapists because, and I shared this with Aaron before, because just like any other trauma, even if you've gone through a bad one, doesn't mean you're not going to go through other stuff. And I've been through other personal problems, but I've also been through other because you're an athlete, and I would consider myself an athlete, so you get injured. And I remember I had I did a bunch of stuff. My shoulder was a mess, and I had done this one lift or whatever, and I could just tell I screwed up my shoulder really bad. So I remember going, and I thought, oh shit, I think the rotator cuff injury. So I went in to see an orthopedist. So I had the whole MRI or whatever. He said, oh yeah, rotator cuff tear, got to have surgery. And I said, oh, okay. So how long is that? And he goes, oh, surgery, probably half hour, maybe 45 minutes, something like that. I said, okay, that's good. Well, when will I start running again? He said, oh, I don't know, maybe 8 months. I go, whoa, wait a second. Wait a second. That cannot happen. What do you mean it's in my shoulder? He goes, no, if you move. I said, well, forget it. I'm not. What else can I do? Yeah. And he looked at me like I was like this idiot. Well, okay, fine. You can go to physical therapy. And I said, okay, I'm going to do that. And so I did. But I was like, can we? Because I cannot run for 6 to 8 months. What is up with that? So just to show you, my shoulder absolutely fine from that.
There you go.
But again, same thing with the knee. Oh, you have to, and you won't be. No, that time out here. Yeah. Give me options, people. Yeah. Don't just say cut and fix. Yes. Not that cut and fixing is not a good thing, but it's not the only place to go.
Yeah.
So
we're finding a lot of the surgeons we interact with quite a bit, and I'm sure plenty more out there have the same philosophy. It's they want you to go to conservative therapy first, and then there's just usually a hierarchy of decision making now that we have the resources we have and the science that we know about, is that conservative therapy can really get you to the point where you need to go. And then obviously if it goes stale or if it stalls, then you have to go through your next option, which again is not so invasive. Usually it's the injection route, and not only just cortisone, but then you're looking at PRP and a variety of other regenerative type injections, and then that doesn't do its job, surgery is then the next course of action. And even through that process, regardless of whether you didn't get to that point that you wanted to, you built some level of foundation. Like I tell people that all the time, like, man, should I get surgery? I'm like, well, let's see how long we can prolong this thing. Let's see if we can actually make the gains that we're supposed to make, or that you possibly can make, because regardless of whether you get surgery or not, you're going to set a fantastic foundation. And if you have that, then your prognosis after surgery is even better. And then you find out a little bit more about yourself, and then hopefully they get deeper into conversation, and they learn a little bit more with every subsequent session, and they start believing in themselves to heal. They start trusting if it's a good relationship. They start trusting with the therapist as a guide, or whoever it is as a coach to help them through their problem. And then they just they may second guess their original thought process. But not to say that's not out there as an option.
No, it is an option, but I think, like I said, and the other thing too, I love when I went to this physical therapist, and his deal was shoulders, so that's cool too, because he was really into that, and he knew. But that at that time too, I was probably in my 50s when I went to go do that. And again, there was no judgment like, what are you lifting weights for? You're 50-something years old. And they go, doesn't everybody? Doesn't everybody do that? Yeah. Doesn't everybody do that? What is it? Yeah. But anyway, so I really like it that he was very serious about getting me back to a level that I could participate again and do things. And then you kind of, again, you adapt and adjust. You don't go to doing the heavy. You start it and you build, your skills back up. So
Sure.
yeah.
I do that a lot with folks, and right or wrong, it's interesting talking to you and hear your perspective. It'd be cool to hear what you think, but I always tell people, you have to almost earn the surgery. If you've been told like, hey, that's an option, and it is, or if it's been recommended, I'm like, well, let's earn it. Let's prove that you're going to fail, and then a lot of good thing happens from that. Like Aaron was saying, you're certainly going to build a base, and if nothing else, and if you don't get better, then at least you've proven to yourself and to everybody else that this is your last option, and then you take it. And then when you get a great outcome from that, at least you feel like it was the right choice. But you'd hate to jump in there and have a surgery and do it maybe when you didn't need it, maybe your outcome's not as good as it was.
Right.
Then you're frustrated and asking questions like, should I have done it or should I not? So whenever possible, I always like to tell them, hey, let's earn it. Let's prove that.
That's a good way to put it.
Prove that you need it. And so you can give it at least a few weeks or a few months if that's appropriate, and rock and roll. So
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, and it's interesting too. It really changed going through this myself. Really changed how I approached patient care too.
Yeah.
So I would say to patients, look, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a consultant in your care. You're in charge. I'm here to, give you information and help you through that. And for example, I remember when I was going back into practice, there was a young guy, and he had, I can't remember what kind of hip issue he had, but it was pretty severe for a young person. He was a skier, and he fell skiing. And he needed to have, his hip replaced and that kind of stuff. And so I said, well, he said something to me about being active again or skiing. I said, okay, here's the premier question. How important is it to you to ski again? And he said, very. And I said, okay, then it's my job to get you there. Because that's all, he has the right to say, I want to do that. Now, how that all evolved, and he did it over time, and it doesn't, the thing that people I think also really need to realize is, like, even with my shoulder, that took a while to do. Just like if you do surgery, it takes a while, that recovery process. And it is a process, and I think embracing the process and realize that as you go through, and just recognize all the traction you start to make. You're making traction, and after a while, you look back and go, wow.
Yeah. Constantly being reminded of what they've already done is a huge element. And it could be so simple, like the rehab that comes after shoulder surgery. Like, they're in the sling for 4 weeks, and they finally get out of the sling, and they're like walking around by their side, and like maybe a week later they're sore. I'm like, but you're out of the sling.
Yeah.
You're like, you're actually using your arm. It's like you can see it do something. Like, that's a great thing,
Yeah,
and then even like being able to run, and so like we're building blocks to run, and maybe you had some meniscus surgery of some kind. But even those initial steps, just start moving your feet fast. It's like, man, it seems like it's such a long ways to go from running, but it's like, where did you start? You limped in here with a brace on your knee, or maybe you came in on crutches, and now you're like leaving the ground finally and coming back down. So
Right.
I think instilling hope in someone is continually reminding them what they've done to that point, and all the effort they've put in, the changes they've made. Like, harness that success story and keep it rolling, so that then you can get to your ultimate step. I think that kind of, like, you've said it in a variety of different fashions so far. I mean, it's such a huge element of what we do. Personally.
No, and you have to tell you, in all honesty, when I started seeing patients in that way, and would realize, I would say, we really need to work on this together. I need to know what you're interested in doing, or and whether it was a sinus infection or whatever. You just give the information, and here's what we know, here's what you do, what do you want to do? Does this work? This would work. And so at the end of, our meeting or whatever, I'd have so many patients go, nobody has ever talked to me like this before. And I said, well, why am I going to tell you? It's sort of like, I love it when I'd say, when, people come in with habits like smoking. And I got to the point after a while that, I always, I put away my pom-poms, and I'd say, are you interested in stopping smoking? And if they said no, I'd go, okay, next. And because I am not going to talk you into that. I'm not going to talk. He said, but I would say, when you choose or you are interested, come here, because I can help you with a variety of options to get to that goal. But again, the other thing too, when you go through I was less exhausted after a day of interacting with patients in that way. And they still got, I think, really good care, but I stopped telling them what to do, and I engaged them in the process. Because the other thing too is, I didn't tell them all, and they walk out of there and say, I'm never doing that. But if you are with and go, okay, tell me what you're willing to do.
Yeah.
Well, I'm willing to drink a lot of fluids for this. Awesome. Then let's make sure you get all these fluids, But again, if that's it, at least let's start there,
Yeah.
Anyway.
So true. No, that's exciting. That's why I'm a clinician. I'm sure all of us here that feel the same way. That's inspiring to hear the story and your approach to it, because it is inspirational. I mean, that's what it's all about. Is how can you help someone lift them up from one place to the next and be the guide. And we talked in a previous episode about being the coach and what it means to be the coach. I mean, and I think that's what we are at the end of the day, is coaches, and in some cases a bit of a life coach, certainly in our case a movement coach, in every aspect of how we can help heal and feel better. So it's exciting.
I will tell you really quick, after when I was going through all this is my situation with my heart. I just remember, and I was young. I was like I said, 35, 36 or 7. And I just came to this conclusion. I go, old sayings get to be old sayings because they really are true. And I thought about, when you have your health, you have everything. And I thought, people don't realize when that's been taken away, even for a while, and that is one scary thing. And when you regain a level of wellness again and health, you really embrace that. Go, man, I can handle a lot if I have my health.
Right. Yeah. It's your armor.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, I mean, it's, you can't live without it, so.
A lot of people live without wellness and endeavor. Yeah.
Well, without the health part.
Yeah.
Well, you did make it 22 minutes, it sounds like.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Amazing.
I know. In fact, it was a few months after my event, and I knew the docs because we were all friends in the area, and I knew who resuscitated me. And I remember walking up to Gary Ryle, he's an orthopedic surgeon, and he was one of the docs that helped resuscitate me. And I walked up to him, I said, hey Gary, I'm just curious, how long did you guys go? And he, super stone-faced, looked at me and said, 22 minutes. And I was aghast. I was just, because like I said, I worked in ICU before. I resuscitated people a lot.
Yeah.
And I just went, oh my God, did you ever think about stop? And he goes, Joyce, your husband's there, your kids are there, no, we were not going to stop the code until we at least got you on the helicopter and whatever. And I just, to this day, I just I cannot believe. And then the other thing too is a lot of people, oh, look at her, she's this big athlete and look what happened to her. She's this big time athlete and look what happened. And Bruce Gordon, who's the ER doc, said to me, who's also one of the guys, said, let me tell you this, that could have happened to anybody, but the only reason you survived it and are the way you are now is because you were in that kind of shape going into it. So, yeah.
Big factor. Yeah, big factor.
Yeah.
Stay in shape out there.
Yeah.
Right? You can save your life one day for real.
for real. That's right. For real.
For real. All right. Dr. Joyce, thanks so much for coming.
Yes.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thanks for sharing your story. Super interesting and providing some inspiration to clinicians everywhere, hopefully, and people that there is this path and way back from trauma and from some of these things that challenge you, and then there's a process to it. So check out her books. We're going to put a link of them up on our website as well, so you can directly get to those and get some information. But
and if anybody follows Instagram, follow me on Instagram.
Yes, indeed.
dr.jmf. dr.jmf on Instagram. We do a lot of fun things about that. And my website, can I say my website?
Please,
yeah. drjmf at what is it? We just changed it. It was Metahab, metahab.com, and we just changed it to drjmf.com, so you can find a bunch of stuff there. But yeah, no, it's been really an honor and a pleasure to be able to chat with you.
Absolutely.
And you can obviously see you're not only moving people's muscle, but you're working with their head too.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's huge. It's huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
that's exactly it. And that's what makes it fun, like we were saying. I think that's what makes you a clinician, you know, it's seeing it past just the injury, but and our story is always, how can we get somebody back to their life? And you talked about it so brilliantly there, is what do they want? You know, what is their goals, and where do they want to go with it, and then really help guide them through that process. That's what makes this fun and unique. Every
Yeah.
injury unique, and every process unique in its own way. So.
Yeah, that's for sure. Good.
Appreciate you, Joyce.
Okay, good.
Thanks for watching KIMEcast. We'll catch you on the next one. This was KIMEcast, and we are the KIME Human Performance Institute. Thank you very much for listening. We'd love to continue the conversation with you. Please hop on our social media. It's at KIMEHPI, and engage with us there. If you'd like us to feature a topic or answer any questions live on the show, post your comments there. You can also check us out on our website at kimeperformance.com, and there you can see links to content that we've posted throughout our podcast for more information.